this week. Or do we have demos? Anyone with a demo? No demos?
Mirage said he has.
No, I didn't say anything. Did you say something, Mirage?
Yes. Did you hear? Can you hear me?
I heard you. I'm playing the demo. So you'll show us after the sync up, unless it's a 1 hour demo. Any other demo? Mike, what do you have to show us today?
Nothing.
What have you been doing? Like, there is no demo anymore. I'm just disappointed. Right. Can you show us how to deploy already?
No need, because now that's still the issue that we have. We'll just give you everything step by step what to do. So
like I saw the discussions on this issue. I'm like, I didn't even want to follow. I'm like, just add the thing. More thing is good thing. Demos, topics. What did we do last week? What did we talk about? We talked about releases. We've had them. We talked about 3.0 and talked about 9.0, which we don't have yet. Topics. So let's take this update. Let's update version 1. Benedek is working super hard. Look at that. Look at that. Everything is merged, but oh, there. Something has been merged. AllowSetAsHomePage, AutorouteSettings, and new setting. That is working on many things without triggering. At one point, everything will be merged. Let's see. What should go? I'm filtering on release and main branches. So last week was the 20. So we are here on the main branch, orange branch. Oh, that's something I saw with Mike last week. So if you hover that, you will see only the changes from these 2 merged branches. So it's super nice. Imagine that you have a lot of noise. If I remove all the filters, you see all these noises. Oh, I don't understand what's happening. And then you hover that, and you just see the 2 branches that were merged. So that's super nice. But I will go back on my release filter and main filter. And I was saying 26. Here, replace Nest package with Elasticsearch. So using the new Elasticsearch library package. Reminder that last week, we merged them in the same day. Okay, GraphQL and Elasticsearch are 2 new breaking changing libraries with breaking changes, because this one is a new package. It used to be Nest, now it's Elasticsearch, and this was in the new major version. So that's why they are on the main branch, target 3.0, because breaking changes. See modular tenants and deployment source base implementation. Well, that's odd to seal a base implementation. So I will believe that the message is wrong here, not the code. Deployment source base.
I think he just means implementation, so
yes,
dependent.
Yes, me too. That's why I was saying the message is wrong, the code is good. Okay. Yeah. clean up user filters. User filters. Clean up what was delivered. Code comments the following in one for remember we have the has permission, we have the has claim. Cool. Fix site owner claim for OpenId. Also the site owner permission, aka administrator role, was not correctly applied with OpenID. And that's something that was ported in 2.1.2, including fixing a bug with these post strings in sitemap generation, including the time zone, the user time zone cyclic dependency that was breaking and blocking migration, so blocking some sites. So these things here have been applied on the 2.1.2 release, which shipped right after. So last week. Any news of new bugs, critical bugs on 2.1.2 now? So far, so good. Oh, shame, so far, so good. Replace unnecessary calls to save changes async by FlushAsync. We didn't tell the story, Mike. It was a nice story. Well, not for you, but it was a nice story. The story of Mike in production. So the story is that Mike was seeing a bug in production with external logins that will completely fail at the database level in YesSQL. So YesSQL will throw an exception saying the ID already exists. So you have like a save async, session.saveAsync, and you have an object. And then it will throw an exception saying like entity. In YesSQL, there is something called like entity map or something like that. Entity.add, and it will do ID object. It will try to add this instance to a dictionary, but this instance was already, with the same ID, was already added to the dictionary. So it failed. And why it tried to add it? Because it thought that this object was a new object, something to serialize in a database. So it says, oh, I need to add it to the dictionary. It can't be existing already. And it was already existing. So we try to understand why it was already existing. And the trick was that this was a change in behavior in YesSQL 5.2.0, I believe. Okay. And Orchard main was using 5.1.0. And I thought Orchard main was using 5.2.0, but it wasn't. It's just Mike updated YesSQL to use 5.2.0 because it's better. It had some other changes. But Orchard core was not directly using that. And this was the issue. The changes in 5.0 didn't support this new thing here that was happening. And what was happening is that we realized that the external application, or actually the user store, they were calling save changes async, which is nothing to do with save async. Save async is just recording an object to be saved in the session, and save changes async is actually committing the transaction. How many T's and M's do we have at committing? Too many M's or too many T's? You know, it's commit. I mean, it could be, it might be good. Committing the transaction. And the difference, so save is recording the object, save changes, and we also have FlushAsync, all of these options, too many options, which is flushing SQL / changes. Flushing means it will execute SQL on the database, but it won't commit the transaction. So this is important when you want to read some pending changes from the same transaction, but not commit the transaction. Like, let's say you say create user, and then at some point you have select from users. Okay. And if you do a select from users, you created a user, you called session save async user. And if you don't call FlushAsync, your select here won't see the new user because it's in memory, but it's not yet in the database. So in the OpenId, there was a flow like this, where it was creating a user and doing a query to get the users. That's why there was a call to save changes async to get the data to the database. But you don't need to call save changes async. You can just call FlushAsync to just flush the changes to the database and then do the select in the same transaction for the same session. So FlushAsync is sufficient. And the issue with the code before with save changes async, with the new yet 5.2, this is actually triggering an issue, because now when you call save changes async, it will also clear the identity map, the list of things that were tracked in the session to be saved. And this is what's happening here. So the identity map is having a double index, a reverse index from ID and from object. And what was happening is that in 5.10, we didn't clear the identity map. So when we were loading the object, it was giving it to us from the session. And then when we were calling save async, it says, oh, I already have it, so I don't need to add it to my local identity map. But with 5.20, it will clear it. So it will not know at this point that it was not there. And it will try to add it multiple times, and then it will fail. So 5.20 plus a wrong usage of save changes async made it incorrect. So what was happening actually is that it's creating a user and it's loading the user after here, loading user. And the issue that could happen is that if you create user 1 and you load user 2, but it represents the same actual user in a database, you might have two objects in memory representing the same record. And you might do changes on there, and SQL will not know what to do. Like, oh, I get user 1 and user 2, it represents the same ID. What do I do? Update it, create it? I don't know. So that's why the add here is correct, because we should not have two tracked objects with the same ID. It's incoherent. You should not have that. So SQL would fail there, and it was failing with a dictionary exception. But now in the next version of SQL, which must be 5.30, or if it has been merged, I don't know, maybe we didn't ship it, it will throw an exception explaining what's happening, explaining you that you saved two objects which actually represent the same record in a database. So you made something wrong. Like, you either called save changes async, or you cleared the identity map yourself, and you still have the same object twice in memory doing the same thing. So here, what I did here is just change the code in Orchard such that we don't call save changes async, just what is required, the flush async, because we need to do a query after to read the saved object. without clearing the identity map during the request. That's the only thing. So everything should work the same, but just doing the minimal things. What's interesting also is that FlushAsync should not be required, because whenever in SQL we do a select, like we do session dot where and list and whatever, when we do that, when we do a select, SQL will automatically call FlushAsync by itself. If it sees that there's something that has been changed in the tracked object, it will call FlushAsync automatically. So in theory, we should not even have to call FlushAsync. Maybe something to try later, but apparently it was required. I think there is a command that says we need to send the thing to database. Maybe we are doing some queries out of the same session, and then it can't detect that there's something to flush. But otherwise, SQL should just flush automatically. Maybe it was an old bug in SQL, but yeah, we should not have to do that. It doesn't matter. If we call it, then the select won't call it because there is no more things to flush. So that's totally safe to do that. So that's the story. And in theory, with that change, now we can update SQL to the latest version. And and Mike, the issue that Mike had in production was fixed once we moved back to 5.10. And then we realized what the issue was. So that was Thanksgiving. It wasn't Thanksgiving, Mike, or it was I think it was.
It was the day, I think day before.
The day before. Probably.
Yeah.
Not in the morning.
Maybe.
Maybe because I think I was
not the day of. No, I didn't. I know I didn't.
I saw you a message on the. Yes, I saw a PR to SQL on the. Yeah, it was. I think it was. I don't know. Maybe not before. Maybe the week before. I don't know. Yeah, I saw a message on a PR on SQL. I'm like, why do you do that? And I wanted to understand, and then we were stuck with production, so I code. Okay, so that's fixed now. Cool. So the next thing to try is this code with the new SQL in production on my server, just to see if it reposes again. But I'm not sure it will happen soon. Replace unnecessary call, add extension method for easier resource management option. Even Zoltan is taking part of the party. So resource configuration, the only drawback I see here is that you don't know what's happening behind. So we don't know it's a transient. At the same time, all configuration should be transient. Hopefully that's the case. So new helper method, and there is documentation. Remove unnecessary null checks. When I saw the PR, I wondered, these are unnecessary null checks. You know how many times have we seen PRs that were adding null checks this way? Because at some point, there was a null, and we say, yes, let's accept the PR because we never know. And now I see PRs removing that. I would love to see the history of these files to be sure it was not added after the fact because someone found it could be null. It's kind of dangerous.
My argument is about this whole thing is that, are you really solving an issue? Or is it just you're looking at the code and you're like, oh, so that's the issue. So when I seen this PR, I basically was like, well, here's another 100 other places that we do the same thing. But I'm like, yeah, it just slows this PR because you're doing a bulk change across the board and you don't know what's breaking what.
Yeah, is there a test? Yeah, so the same thing. Yeah, so yeah, we could break it, and that's why it's related to my comment, which is, I'm pretty sure at some point we add. I know, right, that we add a bunch of these sometimes, because fixing null ref exception. Okay, let's check for the null ref before. Sure. Like, let's take those files, for instance. Is there a way to say blame timeline? Okay, so line 39. Let's look at this one, line 39.
I think I think George and him, they verified that user cannot be null. If HTTP contacts exist, there's always going to be a user and there's always going to be identity, I believe.
Haha. Do you want me to prove you wrong?
I just
I don't
followed
know.
the
I think George
nullability
and
extensions.
Can I show you?
I saw hundreds of changes by Hisham, and I just said, if you do something like that, just follow the nullable annotations.
Yes, but we don't.
That's all I said.
Be careful. So imagine
Yeah, that's
the
not a
doc
guarantee.
says,
That's true.
imagine the doc says, even if there is nullability checks,
No,
it
it's
might still be null.
it's
You
not.
can force
It's
it.
not a guarantee. You're totally right.
And here, HTTP context, imagine the doc says user is always defined in ASP.NET. Fine. Now, what are the weird things that we do in Orchard Core? Like,
Sure.
let's create our own HTTP context because we run in background task. And in a background task, there is no authenticated users. And then the user is null in this case. When do we do that? And I'm pretty sure that's why
But that's a bug in the HTTP context in this case. So it should be fixed there if an ref exception is found.
Yeah, or maybe it's HTTP context, which is null. And that's why we have that here. So yeah, it's just dangerous. So if, yeah, to remove it, or it should be an informed decision saying, explaining why we can remove it.
I think removing question after user is dangerous, isn't it? Because if the context itself null, the user property of null will always be null.
No, that's fine. Like if the HTTP context is null, then the whole thing will be false. So that's fine. So the whole thing will be null, and then this will be false and equals false. That's fine. Here, so at that point it's checked, but here it's not checked anymore. So if this is not null, but user is null, then we have an exception.
So in the default HTTP context, user cannot be null. It's always creating a claims principle.
So if the HTTP context is null, it's always going to be evaluated to false here?
Yep.
Of the double asterisks.
Yep. So if you write something like this, it would be false if HTTP context is null. Because we have a false here. If anything is null, we say that is null, then assume it's false. Oh, wait. Yeah, I didn't even see that there are two changes here. Okay, there are two changes here. When do you get null there? How does it make? I don't understand the code.
So if HTTP context is null, right, we're gonna treat as a falsy condition. That I think he ignored my comment, but I think the better way to write this line, if you want to keep it that way, is remove the double question mark and then just call it equal true. And that would make it a whole lot easier to read, or not equal true, I mean. So if you call it not equal true, then you don't have to have the coalesce, which is confusing.
Okay, well, I will keep the user question mark. I will keep the code as before. It's less confusing.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly my point. It's like there's no point for such a PR.
Maybe that's why there was also the question mark, to make the code simpler to understand. Because if you remove one, then you can't use the equal anymore. Okay.
You can, of course.
You can?
Why not?
Okay.
Call it true, yeah.
Oh, like we do here.
It doesn't change anything, but
no, it's different. Okay, or maybe this code also should be changed.
Is null false?
No, if you have a null somewhere, you will get an exception.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, the question
No,
mark
before
if
the other change.
Yeah, look how
Yeah,
much
it will-
time we wasted on a
You know,
simple
exact-
PR.
But it's
Exactly.
interesting.
Like-
No, there is that.
Like-
No, it's interesting to understand.
That's
there is
true,
that,
yeah.
but this PR that takes so much time for Mike's point is not about learning, because yes, we're learning.
Absolutely.
Mike's point is about the PR itself.
And Mike
How
is
much time?
absolutely right. I just
We are
agree.
losing some time reviewing stuff that doesn't add anything.
It could
that's
only
what,
break.
remember my point also with the is not, with the pattern matching and the or and stuff we didn't know what was called.
Right.
Same thing,
Yep.
like I don't understand the code, you don't understand what you write, nobody understands. So let's keep it simple such that everyone can understand. And it's not an elitist piece of code. And I'm sure I told you the story, but with the is not null and or and whatever, I pasted the sample in the internal .NET chat with all the people running on the working on the runtime, the compiler people and everything, like all the experts of .NET, the people who do .NET. There were very great engineers that said the opposite of what the code was doing. Even them were confused with the syntax. And it's only when the C# lead explained to us what was happening that they agreed on what was happening. Like reading the code, it was impossible to understand what was happening, even from the experts. So just saying, if we can keep it simple, let's keep it simple. Quickly. Yeah. So let's keep it simple. But that's interesting to understand what's happening.
Anyway, I think the making sure it's false if it's null is just more clear for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, okay. Well, the code before was nice.
I don't think it's correct.
You think it's wrong? Okay. Come up with a PR and add some comments.
Sure. No.
I would keep the code like before it was working.
No, I'm just happy that Hisham removed a bunch of changes. There were hundreds of changes in this PR originally.
Okay. Dude, you see what's happening? Let me give you an example. What's happening when we automate changes in the PR with new things. Let me show you. That happens. And then the site is broken. Just one using.
I'm not arguing against you. I totally agree.
It's crazy, right? No, I mean it's dangerous. Like, and I made this PR. I made this change here. I added the using because it was safe. Maybe it's Mike, but I'm pretty sure it's me. Or whatever, I agreed with the change. And I'm like, no, it's completely breaking. If you just look at the code, no. And it should be safe. No, it's breaking the things. And then we have to patch because we broke everything. Just for nothing. So crazy. Yeah, Mike would say, don't fix something that's not broken.
Agreed.
Sometimes, but at the same token, if we're adding a value, it makes sense, right? You know, you're taking the risk, but you're adding a value. But and like here, where we're not adding a value, we're only adding possibility of creating an issue. That's the issue.
Yeah.
But like if there's like if he's adding a feature and he had to do this by any means, sure, you know what he was doing at that point. But just blindly doing it just because we feel like it, that's I think where we get in trouble, I think.
It's like using SQL 5.2.0 just because you need to use it. But there is no reason to. It's okay. And deploy in production. At least I know that there was a bug in 5.2.0 and it's fixed. Thank you. Oh, there was no bug in 5.2.0. There was a bug in Orchard Core that we found actually. That's right.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's all because of Dean. Every time Dean asks for something, we do it, like the user time zone change, and then it breaks Orchard. Then Dean asks something for SQL, I change it, and it broke Orchard. Because of Dean. Okay, what's it about? Update GitHub release issue templates. So now we know exactly what to type, where to put a space during the release process. I didn't read. I just trust you because you did 2 releases, so even better.
just simplification. A lot of it was like extra noise that we don't really read or follow if we don't need it. And I separated a patch release from an actual release because patch release is much shorter and quicker, and it requires a lot less steps. Whereas in the release, we have to do a lot more. So I kind of separated them, and it's easier. And it's like there's warnings too, right? Remember that issue I had where I had to merge the conflict using the UI, and that caused a big problem.
That's why
I documented that.
It's easier, but well, it's less steps. But for me, a standard release is easier to manage. I would say there is less pieces to fit together.
We'll see how it goes on the next release.
Well, 2.1.2 was perfect, almost. So this one, and then add resource configuration to the abstractions project. Okay. Cool. That's all. Demo. We were promised a demo by Mirage. Is it a demo about placement?
No, actually,
Oh.
I'm working on quick and dirty admin theme to see like how feasible to use other things and create an admin theme for Orchard. So I did some like some component base. I use another library called BSCSS for CSS.
Niraj, is your name pronounced Niraj or Neeraj?
Neeraj.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let me share my screen here. If I can share from here. You see my screen here?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm working on this like a blog site here, and I'm using the material design tree for building this admin theme. So I just updated login screen here. And I created in login theme. I set it up the app bar and also set up the navigation drawer. I'm still working on it, so it's still rough. So it doesn't have all the pages done yet, but I can go through quickly a few things that I tweaked. One that I tweaked is like the dynamic colors of material design 3, where you can pick and choose dynamic color. For example, let's say I have the preset color set up here, so I can set up preset to have the theme applied. Let me show you this screen and then I'll change the theme here. So, and also have dynamic color, like I can do a color picker and just go here and select a particular theme. And sorry. Oops. It's not selecting, but let me go here. And let's see if I go over to the Orchard logo and it changes the color and I set it up. And it picks up the color and set it up here as a theme. Yeah, so there's one thing similar to what we have, like dark mode and light mode. And it reflects the material colors in respect to the mode. I also work on this list page, which is kind of a responsive tool. So has like swipe action. You can click on the action, open an edit page. It edit selection. It updates the selection similar to what we have today. And this filter selection, for example, like I search on the blog, and it only filters the blog part, which is like what we have today, same, but in material theme. All this list screen that we see here is a component. So if I can show you quickly. So I'm using the fast element component, which is like a component base list, where I say you see material list here, mat list, and it's a custom component based off of the fast element, which creates a shadow root and adds the slots, different slots to it. Like I have action slot, filter slot, the item slot. Let me show you the bigger one. So yeah, if you can see on the source side, you see mat list is a component, and it creates a component and adds a slot. So like combining the user interactivity into the custom component and splitting the JavaScript code base, moving out of the C# CSS/HTML file into a component, and focusing like CSS/HTML and shapes to purely generate the HTMLs on server side. So yeah, another thing that I worked on this is moving away from jQuery and Bootstrap and using the BRCSS as a CSS framework for Material 3. Also, like rewriting some of the jQuery related code that we have in Orchard core, move into like a component in the fast element component. So let's say you see this search button. That is also one of the fast component. If you see, it's a mat search, but it has exact same logic what we have today, in terms which we write on the document load. I moved that code into like component connected and splitting that separation of like reusable component into fast element, and the element is generated using C#. I embedded that into our resource management here. So whenever you add an element, it looks into our resource and see that whether the particular library is needed or not, and it adds into what you call this import map, and you see the import map is automatically built based on the component being used by C# CSS/HTML files. So moving away from like traditional JavaScript into like a modular script, like ES modules. Yeah, I worked on some of the screens, for example, security, users, quickly in a material form, following the material design pattern, whereas like keeping the action button on the right hand side, so it's easier for mobile developer or mobile users to use on the mobile. So things like that I'm following, and changing the only view side of the screen, so nothing on the backend side. And in core Archer core I'm making on it's like purely the theme. So configuration settings, for example, general. So like you see in tabs format similar to what we have, but in a material form here. The feature screen that I change split into 3 different areas, like active features, inactive features, always enable features. See, if I enable the feeds, I also worked on the dialog boxes. So like what we have the dialog box today, converted into a fast element dialog box, which is a reusable component. Else, yeah, I think that's what I worked so far. Any questions? Any feedback on this change?
Questions. First, what problem are you trying to solve with this? Okay. Second, when you say component, what do you mean by component? Is that a component, a UI component, or is it like a Blazor component?
No, so it's a JavaScript, TypeScript based component, and by building the theme, it's just like additional theme similar to we have separate themes. So for example, let's say I can go to here, design section, themes. So yeah, bear with me, this is like old theme, but let me go back to our admin theme here. So this is an admin theme, our current theme, and this is the theme that I created called MateAdmin. So when you enable that, it just applies to the admin area of the application. So that is what I'm building. In terms of questions related to the component, like we do have dialog component, for example, right? So you see the template ID, confirm, delete dialog. This is our existing code where we build those delete dialog components, put it into the footer on every theme. I'm taking that particular piece and move it into a dialog object. So I can show you quickly how it works here. Configuration features, and then you see here an active feature. If I select, let's say GraphQL, and this is disable, you see the Mat dialog component just popped up here. If I say no, it goes away. You see this line particular. So it's a Mat dialog. It's a custom component. It's a browser standard where you can extend or create a custom component using JavaScript to build an interactivity around the custom component definition that you can provide. So instead of like div and you write onloaded event and scripts, you actually say that Mat dialog, and then you can define attributes and properties, and you can implement as a custom element, and browser recognize it, search engine recognize it, because it's now a standard and most of all the browsers supports it. And it's a reusable component, meaning you can reuse same component everywhere else as long as you add the component modules included. So for example, to use this component mat dialog, I have added that into my script import map. I can call it, I'm calling it as a MateAdmin core and common. So any component that defined under the common library, and when I use this one, utilizing our resource management, it just adds that import map, maintains the import map behind the scene, and that component becomes workable with the help of the library that script that it loads, which is like a module script.
Would it make sense to add support for web components in the resource management?
Sorry, say that again.
In the resource management, right now you can register scripts, you can register CSS. Should we have register web component?
Yeah, so I tweaked that. Maybe I can quickly show you here. But I call it as like in our resource, when you say add resource, you can define a name. So I can show you quickly here. What I did to solve that problem is resource management configuration option. Yeah, so this is how I'm defining, and I'm calling it as defined resource and ES module. I'm naming it as ES module, and I created another tag helper to catch that and convert it into a script.
Okay, so it's just you hacked around.
Yes. Yeah.
So it would be interesting to actually have the notion of modules. Sorry, modules. Yeah, the import. I don't know, maybe modules. Yeah, and then the same way we can say insert CSS, insert, like in the templates we say inject the resource script, inject the resource CSS, the foot, the top. We could say inject the modules, and then all the modules. I think that would be interesting also for the, and you know very well about it because you helped with the implementation, the widgets, the flow parts, the black parts, because we dynamically create and inject HTML and JavaScript. When we say insert part or insert in the flow part and we insert an element, a block, then we need to inject the HTML, but the JavaScript, sometimes the JavaScript needs to be executed also, and sometimes, and we also need to preload all the JavaScript for all the blocks. And maybe a web component in this case would be much better. So maybe also supporting web components with the resources would be much better. This way we could just load all the web components and then instantiate a component when we insert a block. That might be a good use case, I think. Yeah, so here, yeah, exactly similar to that, what I did here is set up the import map. So when we set the import map here, we are telling that this is the library that I want to use, and this is my path. It doesn't actually load that library at that time. It just defines the map. But whenever the particular library gets loaded, so let's say if I go here. So it's lazy loading the library if you select. Yeah, so this library is like a ES module actually. So if you go here somewhere, it actually uses the import statement. I can find it here. So you see import fast element. I don't know, it's very tiny. I can zoom in, but yeah. So if you this statement import fast element as this, and it says from like MateAdmin/fast.
So when this identifies, the browser understands that this is from where I have to pick it up, and that's defined in the import map here. So we can use ES module, we can use the import statement within the ES module, and as long as we have the import map defined here, it can recognize from where to load the file and instantiate that component.
So you
Can you show an example, a code example of where, like, a small component, like from a developer perspective, what would the developer need to change to like adopt reusing those components?
Yeah, so first element, this is what I'm using here. The Microsoft Fast element they're already using for SharePoint here, I think. They're using along with the React library, but this is independent. Yeah, you don't need to use any framework library to use, but it provides like a gap between the default implementation of standard, the web standard, and utilizing on top of it. So for example, let's say in this, say, okay, you import a fast element and define the CSS, and you say create hello world, define an attribute, and yeah, and just import that as a module file and define an element. So this is a pretty basic fast element which shows. So it has a different templates system, style system. So template is like here you see say HTML, then you say this is my property that I want to display. This is the property of the class that you defined, and that's renders, and then you have like a basic observability and other attributes like attribute and things like that, which you can take input and output of the additional attributes. So for example, let's say this dialog element, when I click on disable, so I have defined multiple elements like mode, title, body, icon, for example, and the fast element has this. I have set up that attribute property to that property and also set it observable. So the moment I change this dialog disable title to something, because it's observability enabled, it's automatically updates it. You see the change? I made the change here and it just updated here because it's observing that attribute. Let's see if I remove the icon, for example, you see the icon will be removed from the button. Something like that. Yeah.
Do we need to use more web components in the admin?
I think so, yeah, because I feel like this is what the orchard is missing, the interactivity. There are a lot of things that we can do client side, which we could use to improve the interactivity and user interactions in terms of using an application administration side of the work. Yeah, the placement and shapes all good on a front end side where you have flexibility to manage the site, but as far as we are delivering an experience on admin side, which like we are not changing much, but we focus on more on providing the experience. Probably the web component makes more sense because then we can provide a more richer experience there.
But the people from the Svelte team, they hate web components. Why should we love them?
Who hates what web component?
Rick, the guy who invented Svelte. You know SvelteKit, right?
No.
What? The best thing ever, Svelte.js, SvelteKit. That's his name.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that.
You should look at it. It's beautiful. It's now it's getting old now. It's not super new. It's like 5 years old at least, 6, 7, and it's like Vue.js, Angular, all these things, right? And React, but it's amazing how it works, and it's beautiful. And Rich Harris, I think, and he's funnily discussing with the one who created 11T, the static site generator, who is a proponent for web components, but Rich Harris is an opponent of web components. He tried it, and there are so many issues, he said. So they are fighting on Twitter about fighting nicely, like they are talking, arguing about why or why not use web components. I have no idea because I don't know how this works, but I'm wondering if it's technology of the future or not, because I mean, I'm wondering what their arguments
are. Interesting.
Look into Svelte. Svelte is awesome how it works. Okay. Yeah, so I like, if you could, it would be interesting to formalize that as a discussion to see if we should use more web components, and if so, then what could be converted into web components such that the admin experience would be much easier to change, to tweak, to maintain, if there are parts of the system that we should already move as web components. If we support web components, is it like resource management at least first?
I think just one thing about components, I mean, the only benefit that I see from adding components is that the reusability, right? So if someone wants to change the admin theme, it will be much simpler than today.
Yeah.
Meaning go and change the components, and then you should be able to just change the whole site. So I think if we use component, we would have to use component for everything to make it easy.
Question being also, how does theming work with web components? Can you theme a web component? There is this part. And then there is the part about, now we have a web component that is themable. Can we use can we create some components in the admin that can be reusable across the admin? Like lists, like search boxes, like all these things that we can reuse. Because I think that's a goal also of a web component, to reuse it across pages as a configurable thing, instead of rewriting in every page the same kind of thing. Like today,
I think that's the main idea behind components, and that's what I'm saying.
The content type selector today is a view component. Should it be a web component instead to provide, I don't know.
Yeah, so in components, based on my this small exercise here, what I think and what I learned is that this mat list item, for example, is a component. You built-in provide the anatomy of the component. So for example, how the internal of that component. So if you look at this shadow root here, anything within the shadow root is baked into the component, but anything that is outside this outside the shadow root, what you see this like this div, this title or the now element, those are the feed into the component as a slot. So that is something that you still can make and change, but you cannot change anything inside the anatomy. So let's say in this component you say, okay, I want to show a list here somewhere, and I want to show a swipe action here. which always be on the right hand side. Probably you cannot change that, but you can decide what fit into that particular slot. And you say, okay, if I do not provide it, then I would not keep the space for it. So for example, let's say if I remove this slot here, for example, and I don't feed in, it goes away, and it takes the other component takes the full width. So yeah, you can provide that, but you cannot change in what goes inside the component.
Then there's some work for each component to decide what's the scope of the component. What do we want users to be able to change? What is what the component?
Yes.
Okay.
So the anatomy stays like unchanged. So we can drill down to what are the areas that we cannot give as a changeable thing. But you can provide the styles to the component. So here, if you see, I don't know if I have an example here, but I can define the style of the component. So let's say if the mat list component has header, then I want to be displayed as background in different color here, for example. So yeah, you can define the component parts outside of the component. So we can provide the way to style those differently.
Cool. Nice demo.
Thank you.
Excellent. Other topics, questions? Demos, goals, next things to do in Orchard Core, or something. Mike.
I'm here.
Not true. Very not true. Now that you are done with GraphQL and Elasticsearch.
.NET 9. Yeah.
Yes, where is my branch? Merge it.
Was there something when I last time looked at it, you have bullet points up top. Is there a reason? Is it
No,
not
it's just
complete?
It's just the no, this is part of the documentation that this thing is adding, which is how to update the runtimes next year, like for the .NET 10 and everything. But certain ask for documentation about the thing. So I need to fix that. There's probably some minor issues to fix. Yeah. Oh yeah, so when I created the issue, I explained what it was doing, and then Jonathan said it should be doc. So now this list is also some issue type in the PR, such that when we want next year to update to the .NET 10, we know exactly what to change in the files. Like update this file, change the templates this way, and see. So there is nothing to check here. It was just what was done, and it's also available here. So it's ready as long as the configs are fixed. It's ready to be merged. So I will fix the configs because you merge some stuff and broke the thing here. It's good. But I think we can merge it now. We have 3.0 and all your other things are there.
Yeah, sounds good. Could be merged. I was wondering about it.
Now I will need to fix the configs, and there will be also warnings to fix and stuff because new code, new warnings.
User timestamps. Yeah, I don't know. Why don't we not have timestamp when users created and like it's updated just like we do in content? I was looking, it had a big issue and I couldn't determine when was the user created.
Audit Trails.
Like, no, doesn't give you when the user was created or audited. I changed it so it does.
Then we need to add it to Audit Trails.
Scroll down. Let's see a screenshot. See now.
Yeah, okay, so
now
your PR is changing it to Audit Trails then.
We'll add it to the user and to the user to the audit trail.
Just in the Audit Trail.
Why?
Because then you will do that for everything. Where is my content item? Well, sorry, it's there. But I'm scared. I'm scared about that. Just the
content item has it.
Yeah, I
and
know.
it should have it because
but the user,
well, yeah, I think so. I mean, it was very critical for me to find out. So I'm sure it's helpful for others.
Yeah, but it's a good trade. It should be like, oh, I want to track what happened on my system at that time and who did that. This is a good trade.
Yeah, but maybe you're not using the audit trail, right? So it's a basic information.
No. Then you should use Bitrate. That's why it's for. Yeah.
Audit trail for revision control.
Also,
but
it's a different part of the Bitrate.
Yeah. I mean, look at the changes here.
Thursday, on Thursday, but yeah.
Yeah, on Thursday, but I think that's
really. I even want to change layers. Why it's perfect. It's the best thing ever.
It is. Just making it even better.
Awesome. Okay, there is some work to do on Thursday.
Yeah.
Should be interesting. Cool. Done then. Thanks everyone.
All right. Thank
See you
you.
on Thursday. Bye bye.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
See you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Mirage.